Morning, Chris. Thanks for joining me today.
How you doing, Dan? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing excellent on this morning. And Chris, you are the president and CEO at SCI Group. You've been there for 15 years. So I don't think there's anybody better to ask. Tell me about SCI and specifically what does SCI do for your customers?
Yeah, well, SCI is a Canadian-based 3PL, one of Canada's largest. Been around now for over 25 years, providing services to the Canadian market. And what I'd like to think we've become for many of our customers is an extension of their business, and we treat them as such, so that they see us as a critical part to their success. And what we bring to the table is a full suite of logistics services, both on the warehousing and the transportation side. And what we're looking to do is, create value through the supply chain for our customers. Whether it be costs, whether it be service levels, or nowadays with the growth in e-commerce, how do we help their customer be better? And so we're focused on that and work with many companies in Canada as well as international and global companies to serve the Canadian market.
And you mentioned that you're serving the Canadian market specifically in that answer a couple times. Mm-hmm. Most of the supply chain leaders we're talking to are US based. So I'm curious, in your mind, what makes the Canadian logistics market unique?
Yeah, it's a great question, Dan. I think we have this conversation often with some of the clients that we work with in the U.S. that are looking to come to Canada, and it is a unique place. If you look at the map, we're the world's second largest country. We're bigger than the United States, and yet we only have 38 million people. So what it presents is some unique challenges around how do you serve those customers? How do you get products to them quickly, and how do you do it cost effectively? Because for instance, many of the population in Canada sits within 2 or 3 core cities, but then there's a huge group of people that are much more distant from that. So how do you get the goods there? How do you deliver to their homes? Where do you put the right facilities? And so there's some very unique challenges in Canada that we deal with, and we think we've got a great understanding of that, and we actually believe that's a competitive advantage for us when we're going up against some other, either U.S. or international companies.
That makes a lot of sense. And beyond covering that broad geographic area, in your role, what are you focused on a day-to-day basis, or sort of what are your core responsibilities at SCI?
Well, it's all encompassing. So I'm, responsible for all elements of the business. I work with, I think I've got a really strong leadership team that obviously helps drive what we do. We see ourselves in Canada as leaders in outsourced B2C solutions. So that's more than just fulfillment. That's all services related to, service to the home or the consumer. We do that through a network that, is over 30 facilities in Canada, coast to coast, 3,000 plus people, over 100 customers. So, that's kind of what we're working with. And what I try and do on a day-to-day basis is live up to our guiding principles. So for me, it's about, 3 key things. How do we maintain our focus in what we're trying to do and set the right priorities? The second one for me is how do I help drive operational excellence in our business? And that goes beyond just, service levels and costs, but it's about, how do we run an effective business that's being productive and optimized in all areas. And then the last piece, maybe the most important for me, is about, adapting for the future. And so how do I lead the company's strategy, its investments, and making sure that, the success we've had in our first 25 years, continues on into the future.
I really like that framework. In there, you touched on the scale of both your operation and really that frontline team that makes the magic happen. 30 facilities, 3,000 associates. Can you tell me a little bit more about that frontline workforce? what sort of roles and positions are keeping that SCI engine humming, and how you and your team are working to make SCI a uniquely great place to work in this competitive market.
Yeah, I think the Frontline, it's really been magnified, just in this last, 15 or 18 months with COVID. But, I see our business as, first of all, a people business. And most of those people for us are on the front lines. They're either working in a warehouse, they're working on a truck. So that's, what makes up most of our people. And I think that, what we provide to our customers really depends on what those people do every day. And again, with our focus in serving, the B2C space, every element of whether it's a pick in a warehouse, a delivery on a truck, often impacts directly the end consumer of that product or service. And, nowadays, if you don't do a good job there, you hear about it. So we're trying to create, really a great place to work, not just for our corporate group, but for every person that's part of SCI. We put health and safety and the well-being of our employees first. And again, during COVID, obviously magnified that focus about how we kept our people safe, and yet how did we keep the goods flowing through the pandemic that we're still involved in. I myself, spend a lot of time. I'm a big believer in spending time and talking to all people and engaging all people. I do regular town halls across the country. We do monthly webinars. I get out and do roundtables where I invite, just random groups of people to sit with me so I can understand, what's going on at the ground level as much as at the top. And we're trying to take all that information and be better. And that all kind of culminates with, one of our core elements of operational excellence is we have a very strong continuous improvement program here at SCI. It's been built over many years. And one of the great things about it is it gives the opportunity for even somebody working on the warehouse floor to contribute. So we capture and provide ways for everybody to provide ideas and engage in being better. This year alone, I can just give you a stat. We've had over 1,000 ideas submitted by our employees just in the first 6 months. And many, or the majority of those ideas, are actually coming from the warehouse floor or from the transportation side of our business. So that's, I think, really how we keep people engaged and we treat them right. And ultimately, I think that helps us to serve our customers.
And not to put you on the spot, but can you give me an example of an idea that has been generated at that frontline level and that has led to meaningful improvement for SCI Group or for the employees that you have?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm actually just in the process this month of filming our annual award winner. So one of the things we do, the biggest thing we celebrate at SCI every year is our continuous improvement contributors. Mm-hmm. And that looks at every one of our sites and picks the best of the best ideas and then elevates them to a process of selecting who the top 3 of the year were. And then we ultimately award some grand prizes at a big annual event that we celebrate. So I can tell you, last year, for example, an hourly worker who worked in one of our facilities looked at the flow within the operation that he was a part of, recognized that it wasn't optimal, and then also looked at some of the excess equipment that we had in the building, some conveyance stuff, and on his own came up with a concept of basically relaying out a small area of what he was doing to be more optimal. And it ultimately translated into over $150,000 a year of savings just for that particular area, that particular customer. So that's the kind of thing that I get really excited about because it's somebody on the floor making a difference both for our customer and for our business, and ultimately helping us to be better.
Yeah, I'm sure you're looking for 1,000 more of those.
Love to.
But when we talked about your priorities earlier, that third leg of the stool for you was really preparing for the future. Mm-hmm. And I definitely want to talk more about that. But I think that every leader knows that as you work to discover where the future is going, it's helpful to look at where you have come from as a business. Mm-hmm. So, being that you've been at SCI for 15 years, sounds like 15 of 25, how have you seen the business change most meaningfully over that time, and maybe how has it changed in the most recent years the most?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have been around for a while, and I guess, when I joined the company was a much smaller company, and really had, 3 or 4 or 5 major clients and a few others, and that was kind of it. So over the last, 15 years, the company's grown tremendously, double-digit growth, over the last 10 years. So I would say beating, the industry average. So we've seen significant growth, and that growth has come from us changing our focus from once was these really big, large enterprise companies, and there's some really big names that we serviced in the past. Amazon was used SCI in its initial days in Canada, and we served them for 10 years and doing B2C fulfillment for them. And we've got a number of other large customers. But more recently, we've grown our business by focusing more on the mid-market customer in Canada, where we think our true value can come through. We can create really tight partnerships, and we can provide a full suite of services to those companies. And ultimately, the goal is to become, their logistics arm. And I can give a number of examples of customers where over a bunch of years, they've evolved to basically hand SCI their entire supply chain in Canada. And that's, I think, where we really shine. So I think that's the big change. So, we've taken our one of our statements is we've taken our big player capability, but we've maintained our small player agility for the Canadian mid-market customer. And that's been really effective in helping us grow our business.
It sounds effective. It sounds like a challenging balance, but some tremendous growth for sure. So let's talk about that future now. Where do you see Canadian logistics going? Where do you see SCI going? Like, when you think about the CEO role and preparing your business for the next 15 years, what does that mean?
Well, again, I think what we've done most recently is we've taken our past and the strengths of our past, so that, again, I'd like to think we were kind of one of the first e-commerce fulfillment companies in Canada. Back in 2001, we started with Amazon. So 20 years ago, we were engaged in doing that kind of work, which was basic warehousing fulfillment. Mm-hmm. Over the last 20 years, we've expanded our customer base in e-commerce fulfillment. So I think, we know what we're doing there, and we do a great job. But we've also added a whole bunch of additional services. And today we look forward, and we believe we will be the B2C service leader in Canada. And I say B2C because I think it's become more than just fulfillment. It's value-added services and warehousing, but it's extended to transportation management. We've got a national white glove offering that can provide delivery to home of big and bulky. We've got a technical services arm that helps us support, things that enable deliveries, such as kiosks out in the market. So we've really built up this complete B2C capability. And now we've just recently made some pretty significant investments in advancing some of those capabilities in the areas of automation, business intelligence, order management, and several other things as well. So for us, our future is about focusing there, growing our business, investing and improving our value proposition to, again, the Canadian either consumer or a Canadian company looking to serve, either U.S. or international customers as well.
Makes a lot of sense. And if a frontline employee, somebody working in a warehouse or working in a truck at SCI were to come to you and say, what do the next 10 years look like for me? Or what do the next 5 years look like for me? How do you see those roles evolving?
On the front line?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's, one of the questions that was asked, repeatedly over the last few years is, they've seen SCI, for example, implement automation into its environment. And a natural question for a frontline warehouse worker would be, what does that mean for me? And, does it mean I lose my job? And, what I've shared with them and what's played out is that, it's necessary in our space to continue to invest in technology and automation to provide value to our customers. And as we provide value to our customers, it's allowed our company to grow. Yeah. So as much as automation in some cases has, eliminated jobs, it's also driven growth and new customers, which is in turn created more jobs than were there previously. So I think for the frontline worker, growth is key for us, and that will continue to create opportunity. On the transportation side of our business, I mean, there's such a big swing to, the B2C delivery, that, we've looked at some of our core capabilities in the past and are now adapting them to the consumer. So we are a leader in white glove services in Canada in the past to, being business to business. But that same, kind of technology and capability we have, we're now adapting to delivering some of those bigger, bulkier, valuable items to the home. So there's created new opportunities for that business to grow through capitalizing on the growth in that whole B2C final mile delivery space.
Yeah, I think that's a really helpful answer, and I like the way that you frame it. It's something that we're seeing playing out across the industry, which is, as technology lifts productivity per employee, the total employee count doesn't go down because the total productivity required just increases every year, right? For a business like yours. So these things are complementary. We've talked a lot about SCI, Chris. Before we wrap, I'd love to bring sort of one more question back to you, which is just, how did you end up here? Did you grow up dreaming of leading Canada's largest third-party logistics company? Like, what brought you to supply chain in the first place? And then, what is the road that led you to SCI?
Yeah, it wasn't a straight path. I mean, I went to, like many, I'm sure, went to school not exactly knowing what I wanted to do, and fell into the engineering space. So I got my mechanical engineering degree. After that, went and worked for a year as an engineer, and that was about enough time to show me that wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So went back to school and did my MBA, and focused at the time in what was called back then operations management. So 25 plus years ago, most people didn't know what supply chain meant or logistics meant. So I jumped into that space, seemed interesting, and kind of from there, came out of school, chose to work for a smaller 3PL, mostly because it seemed exciting that, I would be working with different companies every day, as an outsourced provider. And really from there, took off. I started there, helped that company grow, became its president after about 5 years. And ultimately, from there moved on to SCI. Held a variety of executive roles, and then, have been the president, CEO of SCI for about the last 5 years.
Well, I suppose with hindsight, it was a good bet you made 25 years ago, because I think that, everybody is sort of, supply chain is seeing a moment in the sun, it feels like, in the last few years, especially. So little known field 25 years ago has turned out to be pretty integral to the way society operates.
Absolutely. It's amazing to think back about, where it's come from in 25 years, and just the opportunity for anybody in the supply chain space, in the next 5 to 10 is pretty exciting.
Well, Chris, speaking of that, you've got a supply chain to run. You've got a team to help empower. So thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. It was great to learn more about both yourself and SCI, and wish you guys the best in the next 15 years.
Thanks, Dan. Enjoyed it, and stay well.